Welcome to the Juice Radio Talk Show. 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 Reality TV, church reviews. Let's talk happy love and marriage lifestyle. Come and talk with us. Come and share with us. Come and laugh with us. Come on and pray with us.
Regina Clovis, special guest. You should be following your lead. Bless. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen on podcasts. We live on IG and Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Truth and Triumph Ministries.
Well, hello, everybody, and happy afternoon to you all. So excited to have y'all back on our Money Monday series. Y'all come on in the room, and let's get this knowledge, this wealth of knowledge with Pastor Tawana Grant. How you doing today, Pastor Grant?
I am blessed of the Lord. I am so excited for today's session on tips to rebuilding your credit. This is something that we know we have an audience who's interested in gaining this information. So I'm excited about our conversation today. Ourselves, along with our co-hosts who will be joining us today.
Yes, our super co-host. And that would be you, the people who are watching, you who are our viewers. Listen, you are our super co-host here too. You can join in on the conversation by putting your comments and questions in the chat. If you're on our YouTube page, we'll bring those up on the screen when we have time, as time permits, and we'll go ahead and share that conversation. So we welcome you to do that. Remember, if you're watching this on one of our other channels, you may want to go over to our YouTube page. Just go over to YouTube, type in the Juice Radio and Talk Show. Look for the red mug and microphone, and you know you have the right channel, all right? Thank you again for joining us today on our Money Monday series. It's time to lunch and learn with Pastor Tawana Grant. We're talking about credit in this series. We're continuing our topic of credit, and today is a fabulous topic to continue with by talking about ways that we can restore our credit. Now, if you're just tuning in, you may have not seen our previous videos. You can go back on our YouTube channel or our website at thejuiceradio.net and take a look at those videos as well. All right. Today, let's get started with this great question and topic that a lot of people, they're probably sad or not wanting to have the conversation, Pastor Grant, but it's necessary because there can be life after bad credit.
Most definitely. There is life after bad credit. I am a witness. So there are a lot of steps that we can take to improve, right? We've all had those opportunities of learning and of growing. And I will say this, we didn't have people having a lot of this type of conversations when I was growing up, right? This information wasn't liberally available, nor did people be as transparent and as open in an intimate setting to share, right? Their ways that they had to travel, their mistakes, and how they got back up and they grew and they growed from that experience. So we have this now. We didn't have that. A lot of things we went through, we learned as we went. And so now we have the benefit of gaining knowledge ahead of time. And so even if you have already experienced that, right? I know what it's like. I've talked about it before in previous podcasts, having credit cards to the hilt. I had like 7 credit cards. I had something on all of them. Yes. And so knowing what that time it takes to rebuild, to bring those credit cards down, to pay them off, and then to prepare for my next. I know what it's like to have a car and lose a car. So people have all had all kinds of experiences, and you're not alone. But I know on the other side, I know what it's like now to have an 830 or 850. I know what those numbers look like. But it came with some due diligence. It came with recognizing where I was and what I could do, what I could afford to do, and then discipline. I just have to encourage you, because a lot of times things are made easily available to us. And if you don't apply discipline, it's going to be very difficult to maintain a healthy credit, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Financial health. It's your financial health.
Yes. And again, like Pastor Grant said, listen, don't be afraid to have this conversation with people you can trust with the information. Listen, and I want to advise everyone to grab your pen and paper. Let's have this conversation. If it's not something that you need for yourself, maybe your credit is together and you don't need to restore your credit, but it may be a topic that someone else needs that may come along your path. And then you'll be able to give them the tools and tips that we're learning here today by sharing this video with them. Pastor Grant, let's get into the first thing I would like to say is, again, don't be embarrassed to have this conversation.
Oh, definitely not. All have had issues that we've grown through. Mm-hmm. And some things were because we did what we've seen, right? And so we learned as we understood. And so now as we have more information, we understand differently. We understand how important it is. We understand what it means today, what our decisions of today mean for our future. There were been times in all of our lives where we lived for the day. We weren't worried about when to be okay. We weren't worried about it. We knew it would just take care of itself. And so now we have to recognize that there's an opportunity for restoration. I love what Jeremiah 30:17 says. It says, "For I will restore health to you and heal your wounds," declares the Lord. "Because they have called you an outcast, it is for Zion, because I care for you." And so God cares for us. And so he's coming back to heal our financial health, to heal those wounds where we have made mistakes and we may feel like, I've gone too far. You have never gone too far. There's life still in you. You can restore. It just takes time. It took time to get where we were, right? I know a lot of people who get tired in the journey. So we pray for your strength that even as you make up your mind today that you want to do things differently, it takes time. It took time to get in that position. It's going to take time for it to heal. But you're being healed as you go. As we walk through this process, as we gain this information, as we start to apply it to our lives, we benefit from it. And so there are some crucial steps that we have to take. And one is just recognizing that I need support in this area, right? That I need to be healed in this area. I need to be delivered. A lot of times, again, we are following patterns that have been displayed in front of us. And while they may have been well-intended, all of them were not in a good, positive manner, right? The instructions that we saw from others were not always positive. And so I love what Maya Angelou says, when you know better, do better. So we did as best as we could at that point, but now we have information. And when we apply information, that's wisdom. Yes. Wisdom is information applied. And so we just want to make sure that you get the wisdom today on starting over every new day of grace, new day of mercy. And so we're looking at it from that perspective that you got an opportunity to change your narrative. However the book was reading before, we're going into a new chapter. Whatever it was before, we are going into a new chapter. And that means that now we get to write the script, right?
I love that. And I can't stress enough for people to please not feel bad about having this conversation, seeking the help that is out there available for you and ready and waiting for you to take part in that. Restoration is on the way. Don't feel bad during this process. And I'm saying that because I myself have been through some credit woes in my life. And that's why I'm so excited to have these conversations, to be able to share what I learned. Because like you said, Pastor Grant, there's a lot of us that went through these struggles on our own, trying to find information on our own, falling a lot, not being able to understand or know where the resources are. And it was hard. And so I want to find a way to make it light and easy for other people. But during that process, Pastor Grant, I also felt very bad myself. I felt a lowness of myself. I felt like I did not accomplish anything. I felt almost like a failure. But I don't want people to feel that way. I want you to look at this as a restart. I mean, Pastor Grant had another term that she used. It was almost like a new setting or something she used in one of the other videos. But it's a restart, reset. It's not, time to be feeling bad or sad about what happened. Things happen. You're not the only one that they happen to. It happens to other people as well. And I know we may cover also bankruptcy. And there's a lot of people that feel very bad when they have to file bankruptcy, and almost as though it's a shameful thing to them. But don't look at it that way. Look at it as a way to kickstart and restart so that you can get to a better place with your credit. That's what these tools are there for, not to make you feel ashamed or feel bad, but to help restore that which was broken.
Yes, yes. We're coming back to another place of financial health. And I love what you said, because when your money is right, you feel better.
Yes.
So it will also help us in a financial, our attitude, our emotions, our expression, how we deal with each other, right? Because a lot of times we're under stress or under duress, and that shows up in the way we engage. But when we bring things into order, we're able to be more at peace. And so when our financial health is available to us, we are more at peace. And so that's what we want to get to. And I'm just going to talk about, I perused a lot of information, and most of them are pretty much saying the same thing. These basic tools that we can do. And I want to encourage you, it's not something that's going to come overnight. Now, I thank God that in some instances, God performs a miracle. You get a letter and something has been paid off unexpectedly. We see that now with our student loans and that forgiveness, and what a blessing that is. So these are miracles that God can do instrumentally. Sometimes I've known people who have gotten a bill and just said it was closed off, and they were like, how did this close out? Well, maybe they were consolidated, maybe they was clearing off debt, or it was just a straight blessing, unexplainable, unbelievable, God's miracle that came your way. But when we don't have the miracle, we got to walk this thing out, okay? And we have to have the faith to know that there is a better side of the story, and not to get tired in the process, right? Because that's why the enemy gets us into that, or we find ourselves into that space, because it's easy and it feels good. It feels good when you have those things. It feels good when you're shopping. It feels good when you're making those purchases. But we don't always think about the other side of that, right? There's a repay. There's a repayment that comes back. Whatever we sow, we got to reap. Whatever we pushing out, and we're getting it in, we got to pay for it. And so there's a return on that. And so I want to encourage you today that as we talk about the things that we're going to mention, how to repair your credit, these are basic tools, but it takes time, and it takes diligence, and it takes commitment. And so don't get weary in the process. Don't be weary in well-doing. In due season, you're going to reap. You're going to get what you intended, which is the right goal of getting ourselves financially healthy. So the very first thing we're going to go back and revisit again is look at your credit report. Review your credit report. If you can't repair something, you don't know what's broke.
Don't be afraid to look at it. Don't be afraid.
Yes, don't be afraid. You've got to face it. And I love what Joyce Meyer says, face it even if you're afraid.
Oh, I love that. I love Joyce Meyer.
You know, sometimes people will find ourselves in that place where we won't even answer the phone. We won't talk to people, or we won't open up the envelope. Listen, it's not going to go anywhere. So we might as well make up our mind. I'm going to face the facts. And as I face them, you will find God will give you favor with people. And you'll get the right person that you're operating with. And most often creditors want to work with you. Why? Because when they work with you, they get money. They're about paying off the debt.
They want to do that. And listen, I always look at it this way, and I try and tell people that I work with, I try and tell them, I said, listen, each time you don't answer that phone call, another interest fee may be added on there.
Yes.
So you want to save that interest from piling up. Answer the call. And also, I have seen situations where your niceness can cause fees to be taken away just by being nice. The anger, the bitter, the demands that you want to place on, the hardship you want to put on. These are people who are employees. Even though they're collection agencies, they are employees. They still have families that they have to go home to. They still have personal lives that they're dealing with also. Some of them may not like the job they're doing, but because of financial reasons, they have to do it. So don't take your anger out on them. They're not the one that set the policies in place. They're the ones that's answering the call. So I have learned that if you're nice to them, respectful and kind, that thing will turn around in your favor. But you have to remember, they are there just doing their job. And no matter how, thank you, Holy Spirit, no matter how harsh they may sound, because some of them take their jobs a little too serious for me, but it does not mean that your reaction have to be a replication of their action.
That's right. That's right. Life is, what do they say? 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. So a lot of times we can find grace in humility. Because you have to remember, one of the things is we made the bills.
We did it.
right? We did it. We can't be upset with them for calling for about something we did, right? We have to take responsibility, and that's so important. Even in this process, own it. Own it. Make sure, give yourself grace. That's what Regina was talking about. Don't feel bad. Give yourself grace. I am where I am, but this is not my end. This is just one part of my story. This was just one event. Failure is an event, not a person. And so when you fail in one area, get back up, because it is a learning tool. And I love what people often phrase, I either win or I learn. I either win or I learn. I don't lose.
That's right.
And so what we change our mindset, which we've talked about a whole lot, we have to look at this differently. You will always be a runner if you don't face the situation that you have to deal with. And it may not, sometimes you wonder why people, would disappear, why when things get hard, they're ready to quit. Sometimes we have people who are like that. They quit every time. I don't like their job. They quit because they haven't learned that there are things you have to face. You're going to find yourself meeting yourself on every job you go to. And so the best thing to do is to deal with you. Deal with how we posture when things happen. Deal with our own emotions and our own feelings about it so we can address it. So one, again, is get your credit report, because you cannot fix what you won't face. You cannot bring it to a conclusion without making sure you understand what is due and what is necessary. Next, while you are working on the process, right, of restoring your credit, while you're working on, pay the bills on time. Otherwise, there's never a corrective behavior. There has to be a corrective behavior in order to get different results, right? One of the saying is, if you do the same thing expecting different results, it's insanity.
You're insanity.
The same thing. You're just gonna repeat it. It's a repetitive process until you stop it. Until you stop doing what you've been doing, you won't get anything new or anything better, right? And so pay the bills on time now. We talked about before, creating your budget. Create your budget so you can pay on time. And then what you do, start working on catching up the bills that are overdue. I say, Pastor Grant, how do I do that? Now that means, again, you will need to either increase your income or decrease your expenses. We talked about how you get more in the gap. That doesn't change. You got to compress either the top or the bottom to get more gap. So that means in order to have the financial needs that you have to pay the bills and to start working on those that are behind, you got to get more in or stop spending so much out, right? Change behavior leads to a new process, leads to a new way of thinking, and leads to progress. What is one of the biggest enemies of progress? Distractions. We have to make sure we're getting our mindset that this is what I want to do. Listen, can't nobody do it but you. The only person that can hinder us from our goals is us. We are our biggest enemy, right? And so regardless of what anybody else is doing, we have to decide that this is important. And so when the phone calls call and say, hey, let's go out to dinner. Listen, I'm on a mission right now. When the call comes, say, let's go shopping. Nope, can't do that right now because I am on a mission. I'm on purpose.
That's right.
Align to my purpose. It doesn't align to what I'm doing. And so that's why we're talking about mindset. You've got to make up your mind it's worth it. So when you're rebuilding credit, there's some things that you have to stop doing so that you can give all of your attention to what is necessary.
Yes.
Again, whatever you give focus to, you give it strength. Whatever you give your attention to, you give it progress. And so we're encouraging you, if you're going to rebuild your credit, if you want to move to that next level, if you want to come out of whatever you're in, when you're coming out, it might feel difficult. It might feel constraining. I'd rather be doing something else. Yes, but I know that won't get me to my expected end. And so again, we have to start paying our bills on time.
That's right.
Catch up the ones that are overdue.
That's right. Look at that credit. Start paying what's due and start paying it on time. Look at that budget. I love that. I love that. Let's continue on, Pastor Graham. What are some other great tips that the people can understand about restoring your credit?
So restoring, we talked about before, is another mechanism, is considering a secure credit card, right? So again, you're paying the bills, you're catching up on what's due, what's overdue. You are now monitoring your spending habits, monitoring and managing to your budget. So these are key Otherwise, you're going to find yourself back in the same thing. How many people do you know, or even yourself, you've come out before and you back in it again?
Child, I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to testify. I know.
Yes. And so it's because the habit, we haven't made it something that becomes natural, right? Our natural self-management to keep ourselves in the lane. And it's fine to have some things that we enjoy, right? Dispensable spending. It's fine with that as long as you've budgeted into your budget. So in the beginning, when you're trying to get things paid off, and you're trying to restore your credit, you don't have a lot of expendable spending, right? You don't have a lot of that unnecessary spending. You've got to stay on track, because now you're trying to pay on time and catch up. That's two things working in tandem. You're busy. You got a lot of good things going on. Listen, that's the other thing. When you tell yourself, we are how we think and what we say. So don't tell yourself that I feel begrudged because I can't do this. No, tell yourself I'm on the right track. I'm going where I intended to go. This is going to be a blessing to me and my family. Everything that I'm sacrificing now, I'm building for my future. Listen, these things you have to encourage yourself. You have to tell yourself that you are worth it. That what I'm doing now is going to be worth it in the end if I sacrifice now. Oh, I love the saying. It says, easy decisions now make life harder in the future, but hard decisions now make life easier in the future.
There you go.
Be easier. I want my ladder to be greater. Yes. And so I make decisions now. We have to make decisions now, even when it don't feel good. We make decisions now so that our future can be easier. If we save now, and we get our credit restored and we work on it, then in the future, it'll be easier. And because we have memory muscle, that means you remember what it felt like the last time. And when you find yourself starting to trail off or get outside of those bumpers, you start, hey, I know what that looked like. I don't want that.
Nope, don't want that anymore.
You'll say, I don't want that anymore because I know what that feels like. I know how constraining that can be. So I want to stay within my budget. So again, consider the secure card, because that is definitely a way to rebuild your credit. Look at a secure card because again, you're putting down portions of your own finances, right? In order so that a lender will now extend to you credit. And so over time, in many instances, the money will come back to you. And in many instances, your credit line will get increased because you've shown yourself to be dependable. And so over time, let's not forget, it may take time, but if you continue to be consistent, consistency leads to progress, right? So the next thing you want to talk about is making sure you keep some of your credit available, right? So again, not maxing out the utilization of our credit to the top. That's how we rebuild our credit. So as we start to work to bring them down, our credit score is going to go up. There are some levers. We talked about that before. There's some levers that you can pull that automatically, because they are a key category to which credit scores are ranked. And so when you bring those under and bring those within those boundaries, it's going to naturally improve for you, right? These are going to just naturally improve. Paying on time, right? Because payment history is one of the categories. Pay on time. It's going to naturally improve your credit. Paying and keeping the balance low. It's going to naturally improve your credit. Maintaining some of those credit lines that while you're paying them off, we want to remind you, while you're paying them off, don't close them. We talked about that, because the length of your history is also a category to which your credit score is ranked. And so by doing those mechanisms, those 5 things, by applying those into your credit history, into your credit management, you will reap the benefits of doing that. These are easy ways, again, that you can restore your credit. The hard part is doing it. The hard part is doing it. And then the next one is to stay on top of it. Stay on top. Watch and monitor. Don't let your foot up off of the gas. Don't decide that you're just going to allow it to, go. I'm going to get free this week or this month. And then you'll find yourself off task. How many know? Oh my God, that's where I am right now. When you get off, I was doing a healthy eating, and you get off that, it's hard to get back on.
It is.
And so we want to encourage you that once you get onto this track, stay there. Stay there. There's safety within the boundaries of your budget. There's financial safety for you in the boundaries of that budget. And so again, your starting point is research, right? Get your credit report.
Yes.
Report so that you know what you're working with, right? And
Right.
so don't forget the budget. And then let's talk about this. Make realistic goals. Because a lot of times what happened is we become despaired, right? We become disappointed that it's not moving as fast. The scripture speaks that the heart deferred, hope deferred, maketh the heart sick. So sometimes because things aren't happening as fast as we want them to, we decide I'm just going to throw it in the towel. Because we're not seeing it move as quickly as we want it to. So make small financial goals, right? Say I'm to save up this amount. Or we talked about how you can pay off bills, right? Sometimes the one with the highest interest rate or paying the smallest first. Pay off us, oh my goodness. It feels so good when you see something scratched off, when you get checked by something.
Yes.
Make the goals manageable and realistic for where you are right now. And another thing, don't compare yourself to other people. You don't know what they're doing. Sometimes people, we say, oh, they living wonderful. You don't know what they're doing to keep all that. You don't know if next month they're going to be outside. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Live in the manner to which you've been called to live. In the degree, I just believe that God definitely gives us all blessings, right? He has opened up the windows of heaven. He poured them out upon us. But he said he give all of us a measure of faith. According to our faith, be it unto us. And so one thing about it, faith without work is dead. So you cannot, and I cannot complain if I don't get something I hadn't worked for.
Oh.
So if we want something from God, we got to put in our part toward that. We want him. And then the Holy Ghost get in there and help anoint us in that work. He helps us in what we're doing, but we have to be disciplined. We have to give ourselves, the accountability. And again, setting some realistic goals will make us continue on the path, especially if we have a lot of debt that we have to clear. Making realistic goals gives us the push in the wind to know that we are making progress.
Right.
And sometimes even if you have a very large, and that's the only one you're trying to deal with, chunk it up, break it up. Say, listen, it's 6,000. I'm gonna pay 1,000 by this time, and I'm gonna pay 2,000 by this time, or I'm gonna pay 500 by this time. And that way, you see that you're checking off a goal. I met my first goal. By this quarter, I'm gonna pay this amount, because with that comes a feeling of success. With that comes the feeling of accomplishment. With that comes the knowledge that if I did that, I can do the rest of it. So as we continue toward that, right? As we continue operating in that lane, you will see it becomes easier because it becomes a habit. I believe they say it takes 90 days for an activity to become a habit.
A habit, yes.
And so the more you do it, the more you have that memory muscle, the more that you recognize that it becomes natural. It's easy to do. It's just like riding a bicycle, right? And you may not have ridden one in a long time, but when you get on there, it's memory muscle. Them legs start to pump. And you remember, I used to do this, right?
Yes.
So the same thing when we're managing our credit, because you start to become aware.
Yes.
And start to make sure that you're watching and monitoring. That was the last tip we talked about. When you're watching and monitoring, you become aware of what's happening. And you can tell, wait a minute, I'm spending too much. Or you can tell, wait a minute, that credit card charged me too much. Or wait a minute, I paid that credit card. Because now you're giving it your attention. Okay? So again, set realistic financial goals. Even if you're working on your emergency savings, or you're working on a special milestone birthday coming up, all of those things take planning. Listen, we secure everything. We plan, we secure our cars, we have alarms on it. We secure our homes, we got alarms on it. We secure everything, but we don't think about securing our financial wealth.
Right.
So think about it from that perspective. This is your future at hand.
Right. And without the financial wealth, you can't maintain the house, the cars, and all that other stuff that you got, or the insurance or the security alarms that you're placing on all these things.
Yes.
So,
and so
yes.
secure your thinking, right? How we view financial wealth, how we view our finances. It's a seed, right? And that seed, when you sow it, make sure you're sowing it into good ground, that you're sowing it into something that's going to reap your harvest, that you're sowing it into something that is a blessing unto you, into your family, into kingdom, into the calling, into what you have been purposed to do. Put it into good ground.
That's right.
Make sure that's what we're doing. We're making something realistic. We're checking and we're monitoring. Next, again, as you go along, use your credit cards wisely. There are opportunities, right, where we're still using a card or two cards, even while we're trying to rebuild our credit. You might still have a card. Use it wisely, because whatever you spend today, you're going to have to return it. You're going to have to pay it back. And these are mechanisms, again, nothing new. The hard part is doing it. The hard part is just doing it. The hard part is considering that. Now, we talked about before that there may be opportunities where you might want to consider some other specific financial coaching or financial planning so that someone can help you, right? And so it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Sometimes we are having that support necessary. That support is needed. And so we would say, reach out and make sure you find that, just like you do and you go and get coaches for everything else. You're getting someone who is experienced. You're getting someone who has knowledge, who has access to information. Sometimes we even have access to the people who can help you with the financial support, right? So consider that if you need support. Don't go it alone, especially when you've tried before and you found it to be difficult. I looked, and one of the professors, he talked about how in many instances, most of us don't seek the help we need, and we spend a lot of time churning, right? And so if we recognize that we need support, there are financial coaches, there are financial investors, there are people who can help us make good decisions. One of the things, again, we've talked about this before, if you already have a lender or you already have banking financial relationships, leverage those, because they have a vested interest in you. They have an interest in making sure that you do well. They have an interest in making sure that the finances that you owe to them, the liability returns. And so a lot of that information, Regina, we talked about before, is free.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is. I'm loving this. One of the things that I was thinking of also as we go through restoring our credit is when you call the debt collectors or answer the phone, they're going to tell you there's an amount that you owe. So if we could, Pastor Grant, let's talk real briefly on this part of how much should we owe and should we ask for a reduction in the amount that is owed. I'm very, very adamant about telling people ask for a reduction.
Yes, I do. And with that, a lot of them are trying to clear the debt, right? And so they have latitude. They've been given the authority to make that kind of decision where they can allow you to pay a lesser percentage of the overall total due and cancel the debt. Now, that's the one thing I want to make sure that you get in writing and make sure that you validate.
That's right.
That if you do pay a lesser amount, the total amount is now canceled, right? Because there are sometimes people have paid and they still kept the whatever percentage left. And you thought you were done, but they never officially closed it out. And sometimes they didn't have the paperwork to be able to validate that they made that agreement. And so most instances, I totally agree with that. If you can negotiate a lower payment amount to consider the debt paid in full, go for it. Because it is a payment to you, and ultimately it will clear off of your credit, right? So I would say definitely look to make some negotiation. Again, don't be afraid to answer the phone because you have to face it. You have to understand what is available to me. Because sometimes you feel like there are no options. You still have options. Even when you have debt, you have options. And again, it's in the lender's best interest to get some of the money back, right?
Yes, some of it, yes.
I have to do a write-off or carry it for a long period of time. They much rather prefer to have a portion of the liability paid off and to close it, right? So definitely that is a good thought there. Always talk to them to get information. I love what Regina said earlier. Don't consider the attitude of the person who's calling you to be a representation of how they will help you, right? Sometimes they've had a bad day or they've had a bad call before you, and they may be abrasive or abrupt, but you can change the atmosphere. Because this is about you. Don't give anybody that kind of power. I've coached people before and they've gone to work and something happened. They get so mad they quit. I said, wait a minute. You never give anybody that kind of power over your financial income.
No, sir.
Now you're at home with no check and they still going to work. I said, no, I don't give anybody that kind of power over my money. No. And so the same is when you are operating with a lender and they have collections is calling you. That's your financial narrative. That's your financial liability. Don't give anybody that kind of power. And sometimes they might say, and I've done this before, I've called people and not for collections, but just in general calling to get information, and the person didn't seem to be willing to support or answer the question. It seemed like they were having a hard day. I said, well, thank you for your assistance. I'll close the call at this time and I'll call back when I have more time. Mm-hmm. And I would get somebody else who is in a better disposition. Who has a better attitude, and then we can have our conversation and I can get the information I need. So don't even feel like if that's the one person you've spoken to, that's not the last person working there. So sometimes you might have to close the call in a professional way so that then you can therefore call back and operate with a new person, right? Someone who has a better disposition. So don't allow that to keep you from operating from the capacity of restoring your credit. This is yours, right? You own it, has your social security number, has your information. And so you have to take control of your credit, right?
That's right. And let the people, and again, if you get someone who's maybe having a bad day, that's what we're going to call it from now, somebody who's not giving you the nice conversation, you can request to speak to someone higher up, a supervisor, manager, or someone. But remember that you still are dealing with a person and you still have to have your character to reflect someone who they would be willing to help. Not that you are trying to force them to do something because of your anger and your attitude. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Attitude plays a lot to people trying to assist you. It plays a lot into that. So ask for the discount. Ask if they can cut it. You can also, if there's a large debt, you can't pay it off, you can ask for payment arrangements. You can ask that interest stop being charged on the account. Once you make an agreement for a payment arrangement, you can say, okay, will this stop any future interest? You get all of that in writing. I have done this, for myself and for others. Ask them, okay, I'm agreed to do this payment plan. I no longer want there to be any more fees, interest, or anything added to this account. My objective is to pay this off in this amount of time, doing this payments. This is our agreed amount. Get it in writing from the establishment. And then if they stick to their part, you stick to your part. Make your payments as you agreed. And then watch your statements and make sure that they're keeping their agreement also. Make sure if they said no more added fees, that no more added fees are on there. But that's really why it's important for you to get the information in writing of what the agreement is, so that if you have to refer back to it, you have it handy for them and for others. I love this, Pastor Grant. Now, what was your next topic before we go into bankruptcy or joint credit?
So the next thing for today I want to talk about is, just ways of keeping it healthy, right? Because we talked about here's some things you can do to improve and restore your credit. And as you go along, continue to do these things. One is limit your credit applications, right? So if you're trying to repair, this is not the time to go out and try and do a lot of new stuff.
No!
So, yes. So you're trying to repair, you're trying to get things paid down. Because sometimes, remember, repairing credit doesn't mean you're in bankruptcy. That's our next week's conversation. It could just mean that you have a low score. So there is credit opportunity available to you. But what we're saying is limit it. Because now you're trying to build. You're trying to clear off what is already on your financial history. Right. And then you're trying to do all those levers, right, so that you can improve your score. So one, don't and limit any new applications. The next one is avoid defaulted loans. So again, we were talking about that. Call the lender, see if you can make arrangements. Don't default, right? Don't have any that are near to going to collections. Try and get those on your first priority list to get those paid up, or at least start paying on them, right? Because the less you have in collections, the better and easier it is to go through the repair process. Because you still own the relationship with the lender. When it goes to third party, there's a lot more negotiating. That's where you get a lot of the calls. And try not to default. We talked about that before, paying the minimum, paying more than the minimum, so that you can continue on that road to a healthy financial future.
And what you mean by paying it before it goes into default is before it go, you want to deal with the credit company.
Yes.
Establish a credit with first before they send it to their collection company. Now think of it this way. If they send it to their collection company, here comes a whole new heap of fees on that account, because they have to pay that collection company, and that collection company usually charges an exorbitant amount of fees. So you want to work out something with that original creditor before it defaults over to that collection company, because then they're going to come in like the tigers on this deal. Because listen, they are charging the big fees, and they are going to come in more aggressive oftentimes than that original creditor. So you want to try and work out something as soon as you can with that original creditor before it goes into default, which you mean before it goes over to that collection company. Oh, you don't want to deal with that.
Yes,
before it becomes a judgment with the court, which we'll get into that as well.
Oh my goodness. So we want to prevent all of that, all that unnecessary additional added on fees and additional pressure and correction, because ultimately you'll have to work on getting that rebuilt, right? And so if you stop it with stay with the creditor, the lender, then you're in good shape, right? The next one, you want to make sure that you only borrow what you can afford. Right. Again, these are simple things that we can do, but we have to self-manage. Because when you walk in the door and you know how it is, you pick up something and say, "Oh, we're giving away credit cards today." Apply today, you can get 20% off. Apply today, you can get 30% off. Or you buy one, get one free. Apply today. No, you have to tell yourself, "I'm good," right? Because you're on a mission, you're on purpose, and that won't align to what I'm trying to do. While it might be convenient today, it's not on my purpose. And so I need to make sure I'm telling myself where I'm going. You have to remind yourself. That's why the scripture talks about write the vision, make it plain, so that he that run can run with it. He that readeth can run with it. You want to read your vision every day and recognize that you're doing the right thing, because our flesh will make us feel like we're not living when we're not doing these other things, right? If we're not satisfying, gratifying that flesh with everything it wants, it makes us feel like we're not living. But you are. Right? When we're making decisions that are going to build a good future for us and our family and build financial wealth for the future, we are doing the right thing. And so a no to that is okay, because you said yes to purpose. And so the last thing I want to talk about for today is to make sure that you are keeping out an eye for fraud. This is so huge right now.
That's right.
Fraud is huge. You've seen a lot of our lenders and banking and financial industry who have put in a lot of protocol for security, who are attempting to keep at bay those that do security threats and attempt to take your name fraudulently, your social security number, all of your privacy information. So one of the things we said earlier is watching your credit report. You'll be able to catch it quickly, right? And you'll be able to restore that and make sure you refute it. When you see anything on your credit report that's not you, refute it.
That's right.
And have the companies pursue and investigate. Because if it's not you, then you want to make sure that they are evaluating that appropriately and taking that off of your report, right? So you don't want to have that kind of information on your report. And so make sure you're looking out for fraud, because people it's unfortunate, but it's the time we live in. Do that very easily. I most recently last month had to close down one of my cars twice. And we found out what company, where they were getting the number from. And so we were like, okay, well, we got to change the passwords over there, because someone kept getting the number even after I had changed it. It was still showing up as a trigger. And so we had to put in some more additional password changes, additional protocols to keep that from happening, right? So it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone.
Yes.
So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that.
Yes. So be very careful also with a lot of companies and people, individuals, especially when they say they can help you restore your credit. They charging fees. Some of them are large amounts of money they're asking you to pay. Be very careful. Do your research on these companies and individuals before you try and hire them to restore your credit. A lot of this restoring of credit can be done for free and by you. Put work in and do it yourself. Like Pastor Grant said, you want to call these companies yourself. A lot of times when you're giving these credit restoration companies the authority to work on your behalf, you now have to relinquish a lot of your own personal information. And so they have access now to all that you're giving them. Even though you may say, well, my credit is bad now, I really don't care, anybody can have it, but it's not going to always be bad. It's going to be a time where you're going to have it restored. And get this, if you've given all your personal information to them, they're probably going to watch that account and that social security number just as much as, the next person. But you want to be careful with giving your information. I do want to say this, Pastor Grant. I appreciate all this information. I want to encourage people to get their credit restored. Like Pastor Grant said, next week we're going to talk about the more intense forms of restoring your credit by speaking about bankruptcies. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk more about judgment. We're going to go more in depth about that. But before it gets to that point, before it gets to the next week episode, do what you can from this episode to restore the things in your credit. One of the things I will advise, because I know this works, I have done it for myself and for others, is to go onto the website Credit Karma. It's credit and it's KARMA. Now, I am a big fan and really I motivate people to really do that. It's your choice. It may not work for you like it worked for me, but I'm telling you, it worked for me. So I'm going to share it worked for me. I can't guarantee that it will do the same for you because I don't want nobody saying you say it, because you have to put your work in and your situation may be totally different from the next. So I will tell you this. They have a free system that you can go on and they help you get your credit restored. They give you tips, advice, information. You can open up an account with them that is free. If there's a charge for it, you may be at the site where they charge you to do stuff, but you don't need the charge part. I help people with the free aspects of Credit Karma, and it has helped. The tips and tools they give you have been really good. And I have people that have gotten their credit scores gone from the low 500s. They're now into the high 700s. So it will work if you work. Now, are you going to have to put the work in? You definitely are. Are you going to have to make these phone calls to these creditors like Pastor Grant said? You definitely will have to. Are you going to have to make a payment plan? Of course you are. Is it going to be hard? Only if you make it hard. It will only be hard if you make it hard. Listen, take what you can and do what you can with it. Like Pastor Grant said, don't make unrealistic goals.
Yes.
Things happen. You have an automobile, you have home, you have things that may break down on your automobile, things you may need to fix in your home. You still need to have that cash set aside for those things as well. So don't say, well, I'm going to pay $1,000 a month to get my bills together. And then something breaks in your house. And now you have to take from that, because now the creditor is going to say, well, you agreed to do this. This was agreement. And now you're not holding to that. So I would suggest making the smallest plan that you can with that creditor. And then should you get some extra money put aside and you want to put that towards that extra debt, put it towards that. That creditor is probably going to look at that like, hey, they agreed to pay this small $200, but this month they paid $500. And they may look at that as something great and be willing to work with you in other areas. But you have to start with something that you can work with. not only for that moment, but think future as well. Pastor Grant, I love the tips. I'm just going to share them real quick before we get out of here. First thing you said was look at your credit, pull up your credit history, get your credit report, pull it up, all three bureaus, pull it up because one may not be on the other.
That's right.
Pull it all up. Also, pay your current bills on time. Don't negate those now. Pay those on time. Secure your credit cards. Get a secured credit card. Get a secured credit card for future, things that you may want to do. Set that up. That's going to help you with restoring your credit. And also stay on top of your credit. You started the process. Don't stop it. Right. Don't stop the process. Continue this. Don't give up. You're going to push through. You're going to get through the muck, get through all of that, and you're going to be better. But you have to stay in the race. All right? Don't give up. Also, make realistic goals. Don't do something that's going to be too high. Start small. And if you can add to that each month, that's a good thing. But don't make unrealistic goals. And also, that's what she said was watch out for fraud. Be very careful during this process to make sure that you do your research on things to make sure that you don't get trapped in a case of fraud. Nobody wants to deal with fraud while they're trying to restore their credit. You're looking at one debt, you thought you paid it, and then ends up you paid somebody else who wasn't supposed to get that money. And then now you're like, I'm in a double worse situation because the creditor still says, I want my money. Okay.
That is so true. And that can happen, right? That can happen. Good point.
So be very careful with fraud. Pastor Grant, I have loved this. Thank you so very much for being here. Listen, next week, we're going to be back for our Money Monday series, our Lunch and Learn series. You all, Pastor Grant is doing a lot out here. She's a financial wisdom of wealth. And I believe you all need to learn more about her. Pastor Grant has a church ministry in Riverdale, Georgia. And I want you all to know of it. Her church ministry, which she does with her sister, is My Father's House Pentecostal Church. My Father's House Pentecostal Church. They're there on Sunday mornings, and they also stream online on Facebook. This is their Facebook page. Make sure that y'all support her. Go over there and support her at My Father's House Pentecostal Church. Pastor Grant, what times are your services here at My Father's House?
Yes, we are in our discipleship training, the Master's Life. So that is Wednesdays for an hour power from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Again, Wednesdays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And immediately following, we distribute our food pantry, which is free food to our community and to our fellowship. So all are welcome. And then on Sunday mornings, we have our discipleship training again, also known as Sunday School. From 10:30 to 11:20. And then we go right at 11:30 into our worship experience where we are excited and on fire for God. So again, we encourage you. We have service on Wednesdays from 7 to 8. And then Sunday morning worship 11:30. So we are just excited to have you with us. We're at 567 Valley Hill Road in the beautiful city of Riverdale, Georgia. We just celebrated our 4th church anniversary on yesterday. And we were so pleased to have with us the mayor of Riverdale, as well as our district ward Councilman Cobbs Jr. So it was a day of excitement and worship unto the Lord for all the great things that he's done. I did want to mention, Regina, on May 27th of this month, we are going to have our community event outreach where we give out free boxes of food. We give away free clothing and free shoes. And we just encourage all of the viewers, if you're in the Riverdale area and you know of someone in need, please have them come through. Again, everything is free. Free food, free shoes, free clothing, and free personal bags for those who are underserved or unhoused. We look forward to sharing the love of Jesus with you outside of our 4 walls. So thank you. And we thank God for the opportunity today to share in our credit, financial management. And I just know great things are going to come out of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for that. And Mayor Riverdale, is that still Mayor Wynn?
Wynn, yes, it is, Dr. Wynn. Yes,
I'm gonna call her. I have she's such a wonderful woman. I love her. I have not spoken to her in a little bit. I'm going to actually reach out to her and give her a call. She's such a wonderful person. I love her. Wish I could have made it there Sunday. I would have loved to enjoy the service that you guys have and celebrate with you. But there are some future events coming up that I will be a part of with your church.
Yes, we're excited. Regina will be with us for our Mother's Day tea.
Yeah,
so that is wonderful. On Saturday, May the 13th at 12 noon, we're going to have high tea with all of the beautiful women and mothers as we celebrate Mother's Day weekend. So thank you so much for being our special guest and sharing inspiration and encouragement with the women of God. So we are so grateful to have you in ministry with us on May the 13th.
I love it. Thank you so much. And we'll be at the community event as well, supporting you for that as well. We will get back to some of the church services as well. And we are here to support you and your ministry. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. And listen, I believe we're going to continue the process of not only saving people's souls, but saving people's financial wallets as well and getting people back to a healthy financial status. That's part of our goal here at the Juice Radio and Talk Show. And thank you so much, Pastor Grant, for joining us and contributing your wealth of knowledge to this process. I really appreciate you so much. I'm also going to say to the others, remember, support her. You want to support people that pour into you. You know, don't just pull out from them and not pour back into them. So support Pastor Grant by, if you can't go to her church in Riverdale, at least watch them on Facebook. Go back if you can't watch it the time that they have it. Watch the previews. Watch the recorded videos. They're still up. Support. Put the likes and hearts in the comments and let her know that you're supporting her. All right.
Thank you. Yes.
We appreciate you all. If you're watching this and you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Remember, if you want to listen and learn, you can go to our podcast channel, the Juice Radio and Talk Show Podcast. That's streaming on all social media platforms. Thank you to Noye Podcast Production. Houseofnoye.com is how you can reach them to get your own podcast going. I also want to thank our sponsors. Custom Apparel Shop. Listen, Israel Mason is doing it out here, y'all. And he's not only doing it for us, he's doing it for you guys too. Embroidery work is a thing that he does, and silk screening, and he'll help you out as well. You can contact him directly at 786-657-7501. A great big thank you to our main sponsor, Truth and Triumph Ministries. Thank you, Truth and Triumph Ministries, for sharing your work and your monetary donations to this channel. Thank you. Truth and Triumph Ministries is a 501c3 ministry that cares about telling people the truth so that they can triumph in life. Thank you again for all the work that you do. Pastor Grant, thank you so much. We're going to get out of here, but we're going to be back next week. Thank you again for joining us for our Lunch and Learn. We will return next week. On the count of 3, we're going to say goodbye for now. Ready, Pastor Grant?
Yes, I'm ready.
1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the Juice Radio Talk Show. 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 Reality TV, church reviews. Let's talk happy love and marriage lifestyle. Come and talk with us. Come and share with us. Come and laugh with us. Come on and pray with us.
Regina Clovis, special guest. You should be following your lead. Bless. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen on podcasts. We live on IG and Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Truth and Triumph Ministries.